Good morning. Welcome to this meeting of the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, April 16th. We start every meeting by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, please proceed with the agenda.
A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. Additionally, a copy of all written material to be discussed at today's open meeting is available from the county clerk staff at the front of the hearing room. The material can also be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Agenda item 1 are minutes. Approve the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held on Tuesday, April 9th, 2019.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or suggested corrections? Please call the roll.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Best?
Yes.
Brinkman?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Number 2 are claims. Approval of all claims processed through April 16th, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest?
Yes.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Brinkman?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0. Next is number 3, consent items. These are routine business items that are expected to be adopted without dissent. Any individual item may be removed for special discussion and consideration by a commissioner or any member of the public without prior notice. Unless there's an exception, these items will be approved as one with a single vote of the Board of Commissioners. These items are approval of utility print number 1783, allowing Nebraska Link to install approximately 2,700 linear feet of new fiber optic cable under South 1st Street and Pioneer Boulevard to point westerly along Calvert. There is no cost to the county. Amendments to the following contracts. C-18-168 with All Needs Computer and Mailing Services, Inc. for annual requirements pre-sort mailing services. C-17-286 with Walker Tire Quick Nicks for preventive maintenance services for automobile and light trucks. C-17-285 with Metzger's Auto Service and Lincoln Lube for preventive maintenance services for automobile and light trucks. C-18-196 with United Seeds, Inc. for grass seed. C-18-195 with Miller Seed Company for grass seed. C-18-230 with Genoa Healthcare LLC for pharmacy services for general assistance clients. C-15-500 with Lawson Products, Inc. using Region 4 and TCPN solicitation number 14-21 for maintenance, repair, and operation supplies and related services. C-16-438 with Transit Works for additional HPR TK network subscriptions. C-16-10 with Nebraska Secretary of State Records Management Division to provide microfilming imaging services. C-17-390 with LexisNexis VitaCheck Network for Lancaster County online payments point of sale. Right-of-way contracts with the following: Douglas A. Kuster, South 82nd Street between Roca Road and Sotilla Road in the amount of $2,665. John and Patricia Envelson, co-trustees, South 1st Street and Yankee Hill Road in the amount of $235. Received and placed on file the County Attorney's Quarterly Report for January 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2019. Setting a public hearing on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019 at 9 a.m. in Room 112 of the County City Building for the purpose of increasing the appropriations for the Workers' Compensation Loss Fund and establishing the Fleet Management Fund and the Countywide Sinking Fund.
Move approval of the consent items.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest?
Yes.
Shore?
Yes.
Flowerday?
Yes.
Brinkman?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next is number 4, special presentation, Region 5 Annual Report, Dave Merrill, Region 5 Services, and C.J. Johnson, Region 5 Systems.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is CJ Johnson. I'm the Regional Administrator for Region 5 Systems. We're responsible for providing behavioral health services in southeast Nebraska. We do that by contracting with anywhere from 10 to 15 providers annually. We have funding of about $23.5 million. 77% of that is from state funding, about 15% comes from federal funding, and about 6% comes from county funding. If you go to page 7 in the report, you'll see the providers that we are contracting with right now. These providers provide about 65 different services throughout southeast Nebraska. Most of the funding we receive actually ends up in Lancaster County, and that's because all of our residential services actually occur in Lancaster County. We've explored residential programs in the rural areas, but capacity just doesn't make it cost efficient to have them there. So everybody that goes to residential programs comes into Lancaster County for those various substance abuse and mental health services. On page 10, I'd like to point out that 2 years ago, we developed a centralized data system which is now allowing us to really measure the outcomes for the work we do. All of our providers have identified different evidence-based data tools to measure that with. So we meet with them on a regular basis and identify the various outcomes that we want. Overall, you'll see that we have over a 50% recovery rate, which is excellent. It's the same as across the nation, about 50% for individuals with mental health and substance abuse issues. If you go to page 21 and 22, we'll talk about our rental assistance program. That's been around since 2005. Every year we serve about 350 individuals. We provide vouchers to individuals that have serious mental illness and substance use issues. These vouchers are to provide temporary housing for individuals to move eventually into more permanent housing. We have about a 76% success rate, and we're very happy about that because it's very important to people's recovery to have stable housing as well as stable employment. On page 24, I'd like to talk a little bit about our emergency system coordination. Every year we have just around 600 to 700 emergency protective custody holds that end up in the crisis center here in Lancaster County. Of those, about 60 individuals are placed on an inpatient commitment every year to receive ongoing inpatient treatment, generally at Mary Landing in Hastings. We no longer use the Lincoln Regional Center as frequently as we used to. Of those 650 EPCs that we have annually, about 500 of those come out of Lancaster County. I'd just like to point out that if you took the average length of stay for those individuals and took it by the average cost that you may find in a hospital of about $1,000 a day, that comes to about $2.5 million. So the fact that you work together with the rural counties to run the crisis center, which also receives state funding, is a great cost savings to Lancaster County as a whole. On page 28, I'd like to talk about our professional partner program. That's been around since 1995, and I don't know if I'm proud to say this or not, but I'm the only one left in the state that's associated with those programs that got started then. I started out doing the clinical consultation way back then. The purpose of the program is to work with families who have a child with a serious emotional disturbance, to keep them in their home, their community, and their school. And I'm very proud to say we have over a 90% success rate in accomplishing that ever since 1995. So much so that we now have contracts with juvenile justice. We've established a transitional age program for youth 18 to 24. We also have a prevention program for families that are really struggling and thinking they're going to have to make their children state wards. We're able to intervene to prevent that from happening. And 2 years ago, we started crisis response teams across southeast Nebraska for families, for law enforcement, when they were having multiple encounters with families or significant issues. So we've started a crisis response professional track as well to work with those families on an ongoing basis should they need that. We also do a variety of mental health and substance abuse prevention activities throughout southeast Nebraska. There'll be a presentation at another time to discuss all those activities that we do. If you go to the very last page, we'll talk about the state-required contribution. You'll see at the top, there's an increase of 7.56% this year. Now, that sounds like a lot, but I would like to point out that the last 3 fiscal years, there has been no increase in county contribution. The reason there's a 7.56% there is because in the governor's budget, as well as the Appropriations Committee bill, there was $2.8 million put in there to increase rates to our providers based on a cost model study that's been done over the last couple of years. This is critical to our providers, as many of them really go from month to month because of Medicaid payments, et cetera, not always being on time. I also would like to point out that with Medicaid expansion anticipated, there was also a $1.8 million pullout of our funding across the state, expecting there to be cost savings for Medicaid from Medicaid expansion. Well, on April 1st, the governor announced that that was not going to occur, be fully implemented by October 1st, 2020. Last week, in a joint public hearing between the Appropriations Committee and the Health and Human Services Committee, it was recommended that that $1.8 million be taken out and not withdrawn from the regional systems. We anticipate that will be what happens, and because of that 2.8 that got put in and the 1.8 out, that would constitute that 7.56% increase in overall county contributions. So for Lancaster County, that comes to $684,200, and for substance use, that'd be $123,059. I can answer any questions at this time you might have.
Any questions? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Dave Merrill with Region 5 Services, and we provide direct supports to people with developmental disabilities. So CJ and I always travel together so people can understand the difference between the two programs. The report that I have to share with you, this is my 32nd presentation to the Lancaster County Commissioners, my 499th to Region 5 counties since I've been in this job. So you didn't hit the lucky 500, but I expect to make that next month. If you turn to page 6 in your report, you'll see the Region 5 Foundation. I thought it was important for you to recognize that in 1991, we established the Region 5 Foundation as a 501c3 because as a public service provider, we weren't eligible for a number of grants and different things that way. You can see the map of the region and where we provide supports on that. If it has a star, there's an area office. We have 15 area programs, 6 of them in Lincoln, and 5 satellite programs. The foundation, CJ was talking about feeling old. I'm the only living member of the original foundation board in '91. And this year we received 16 vehicles from the Department of Roads that were really much needed for the work that we do throughout southeast Nebraska. If you turn to the next page, you'll see our positive indicators of success, and what we're really proud of is the number of people with disabilities who we've helped get and keep jobs in the community. When I started 31 years ago, you didn't see as many people in the community with developmental disabilities, and now you see them working in all sorts of jobs almost everywhere you go. And we're really proud of that because it makes people then see people with disabilities as contributing members and income taxpayers. Taxpayer is a positive, valued role in our communities. We also keep track of the number of people who rent their own places and own their own homes. 31 years ago, you would have never thought that 21 people eligible for our services would actually own their own homes through the work that they've done and the money that they've saved. You'll see our total budget has been pretty level because the number of people we support has been pretty level. It's a fee-for-service thing, so we get paid by the state. We get paid the same as for-profit and not-for-profit providers. And the more people you support, then the more that you're paid. And the numbers in the state of Nebraska have gone down at the same time that the number of providers has gone up. So it's been pretty level funding. Most of it comes through the federal government, through the Medicaid waiver, and this was the first year that I remember in about 20 years that Nebraska's federal match actually went up instead of down in the Medicaid formula that's used, which is both good and bad news. It means that Nebraska didn't do quite as well economically as other states, and for the last couple decades we had been doing better. You'll see the number of staff that are there, and in the other pages you will see Lincoln's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and service link. And this is actually Deb's favorite part, is looking at the pictures of the people that we support and what they've been accomplishing over the last year. I have to talk a little bit about county funding. Lancaster County remains the only county in the state of Nebraska that provides no funding for the public provider of developmental disabilities out of 93 counties. I have provided a list of the counties of Region 5 and their contributions and to Region 5 services. And this year I tried to step it up a little bit, and on the other side of the sheet is just our request for this year. And just to get your toes in the water kind of thing, our request is $19,374, which is the average of all the counties. Currently, Pawnee County contributes more to services in Lancaster County than Lancaster County does. And so just to get the foot in the door, that will be our request. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dave? Okay, thank you for being here. All right, Mr. Clerk, let's proceed with the agenda.
Next is number 5, new business. 5A is a special designated license application from Top Spin LLC for an event at 11401 Van Dorn Street, Walton, Nebraska, on May 4th, 2019.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Matt Taylor. I own Tavern on the Square and the Other Room. Top Spin LLC is our company. We are doing the alcohol catering on May 4th. On a horse farm. It's the Kentucky Derby Day, so later today I'm shopping for bowler hats and bow ties. 300 people or so. This is the first time we're doing it in this location. Entertain any questions?
Any questions for Matt? Yes.
I was just curious. It said a fundraiser, didn't really specify.
Jumpin' Juleps is the, I don't know, India, or the I don't know, company, I guess.
Oh.
It's horse therapy. Is what they do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks for being here. I'd entertain a motion.
I move approval.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. B is a special designated license application from Spring Creek Prairie Audubon Center for an event at 11700 Southwest 100th Street, Denton, Nebraska, on May 11th, 2019.
Hi.
Good morning. I'm Megan Sittler. I'm the Center Director out at Spring Creek Prairie. And this is our second Birds and Brews event of the year. It's an outreach program. Our last one was in February, was very successful. This is part of International Bird Day, which if you work for Audubon is a big day. And so there will be a program led by our Education and Outreach Director. And we will also have some beer available for the registered participants in the event.
Okay. Any questions?
Move approval?
Second.
All right, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. 5C is a special designated license application from Sasastra Shrine for an event at 1050 Sotelo Road, Roca, Nebraska on August 17, 2019.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Keith Plummer. I'm the office manager for Sesostris.
I'm Doug Kuzer, the event coordinator.
Our event basically is a beer garden. It's a dance and outdoor bands outside of our existing building. It's a fundraiser.
Great. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Move approval?
I would second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. D is an amusement license renewal application from Jan and Daryl Hauser doing business as Pine Creek Farms for an event at 11505 North 14th Street, Raymond, Nebraska on May 4th, 2019.
Good morning. I'm Jan Hauser, and I am the person that represents Pine Creek Farms. We're just asking for a renewal again. And I know there's a little question about maybe the amount of people. We're only doing one day, so I probably should have not put 400 to 500. It would probably be more like 3. We have had 2 days events, but never have had any issues with anything, because if you would look back, see that my church had also done events there at 11505, and so this would be almost the 7th, I think 6th or 7th year we've done an event there with no problems. And I know they asked that no parking on North 14th Street, and we get that. You have any questions for me?
Any questions for Jan? No, I don't think so. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I would move approval.
Second.
Second, but I do have a question. Jan, did you see the comment about an electronic sign notifying the traveling public of the event?
We had purchased last year signs from a group in Havelock, and they were not changeable signs. They were just the regular signs. That's what were put in. So we purchased those instead of the changeable signs.
Okay.
So we purchased those, and those have worked well for us. Those changeable signs,
Expensive.
I'd have to take somebody's investment from somewhere. But those other signs did work well. We do have people that stay at the end of the driveway, and I do have small signs done from Office Supply that show that there is an event ahead plus that big sign, and on that sign there's a flashing light that is just self-attached to the sign. Does that answer your question?
That answers the question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. 5E is a resolution authorizing the installation of traffic control devices in Lancaster County.
I'd entertain a motion. Or are we looking for somebody to come forward?
I guess we're not having anybody.
The engineer's out of town, so if you're looking for her, she won't be here.
I see. I would move to approve.
All right, here comes Ken.
We have a motion. Would anybody make a second?
Oh, we
To
have a
facilitate
second.
discussion, we have a motion and a second. Ken, welcome.
Ken Trotter, Lancaster County Engineering. This is just signage to notify the public of the change of speed limits. So it's just something that should have probably been done, and we noticed that hadn't been signed, so it's just to catch up.
Any questions for Ken? All right, we do have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. 5F is a resolution in matter of the emergency closure of Bridge A140.
Ken Schroeder, County Engineering Department. One thing I wanted to point out is that this isn't I don't know if it makes a difference, but it's not a bridge. So I guess I would think the more accurate language would be structure A140. It's a box culvert that's on the road that last week they closed for bridge A138.
This is the second or third closure on Little Salt up there. This is the second one, right? It's one.
Pardon me?
There have been several closures up in the sort of
Yes.
the north.
Yes, that
northwest
quadrant.
corner up there on
Yep.
Little Salt. This is the second or the third, you know?
I think this is the second
Okay.
one in that area.
Yeah.
What's kind of unique about this is the farmer, both of these structures have excessive scouring, so I think the farmer needs access to some fields here between these structures. So it's being evaluated to see if we can repair the damage, you know, quick enough to get him into his fields and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just cave-ins, and here's a picture of the twin box culverts, twin 72-inch arch CMPs.
Yeah.
So it's being evaluated. I don't have any information on when it's going to be completed.
Okay. Any other questions for Ken?
I would move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any
Ken.
other discussion?
You're,
Oh, okay. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. G is a recommendation from the purchasing agent and the county engineer to award a contract to Midwest Infrastructure, Inc. for culvert maintenance, 2019. The total amount of the contract is $677,091.95.
Move approval.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. H is a recommendation from the purchasing agent and county engineer to award and execute a purchase order to Ham Pawnee City for rock based on the emergency declaration by the county. The total amount of the order is $354,000.
Good morning.
Morning. Bud Geisling. I'm the Assistant County Highway Superintendent. This rock is for future rock stabilization with the roads. You know, the last 4 to 6 weeks we've had a lot of soft roads complaints. None of the local vendors we normally do. We put out a requisition for 40,000 ton bid. Nobody replied to it based on the needs of everything else within the state of Nebraska. So this is rock that we need to help maintain the roads and stabilize them going forward.
Okay. Any other questions for Bud? All right. Thank
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Five I is a lease agreement between Lancaster County as lessor and Centerpoint Nebraska Nonprofit Corporation as lessee for the old Juvenile Detention Center building located at 2220 South 10th Street in Lincoln, Nebraska. The lease term is March 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2024.
Good morning, Karen Peterson, Lancaster County Property Management. This is actually a renewal of an existing lease. Centerpoint has actually occupied this building since 2005. They're asking for a 5-year renewal. Lease rates to remain static for 2 years, a 2% bump for years 3 through 5. I'd entertain any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Karen? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Move approval.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. J is a recommendation from the Personnel Policy Board to create the classification of Labor 2, change the title of heavy truck operator to equipment operator and revise the classification, delete the classification of equipment operator 1, and amend Rule 17.0 19 of the Personnel Rules shift differential.
Good morning, Doug McDaniel, Human Resources. In staff meeting, we've reviewed with Commissioners 1, 2, and 3. Item 4 was also addressed by the Personnel Board, and this is basically some cleanup, and it's an outgrowth of negotiations with one of the unions. So it deletes some language that's kind of carryover from Lancaster Manor and then equalizes the shift differentials. So, okay.
Any questions for Doug?
Move approval.
I would second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendations from the Personnel Policy Board. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. 5K is a contract with WatchGuard Video using the HGACEF 04-19 contract to provide law enforcement speed detection and video equipment. The term of the contract is from April 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2020. The pricing will be pursuant to the HGAC contract. The cost of county is not to exceed $55,000.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. 5L is a grant contracts with the City of Lincoln Police Department for their Shields Unity program for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019, funded by the following. Nebraska Commission on Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Community-Based Juvenile Services Aid Grant in the amount of $8,000. Lancaster County General Funds in the amount of $3,000.
Move approval.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. M is adoption of the 2019 Lancaster County Board of Equalization Policies and Procedures for Property Valuation Protest.
Move approval.
I would second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. N is a space rental agreement between the Lancaster Event Center and Lancaster County on behalf of the Lancaster County Clerk for meeting space in conjunction with referee hearings from June 26, 2019 to July 22nd, 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. 5O is a contract with Safety Clean Systems for annual services, parts washer services, recycling solvent. The contract is for 1 year with the option to renew for 3 additional 1-year terms. The cost of county is not to exceed $1,500.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. P is professional services contract with Felsberg, Holt, and Ullvig for wetland delineation and permitting services for project 19-20. The anticipated completion date is December 31st, 2020. The cost of county is $4,541.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Q is a reappointment of Catherine Garcia and Tom Randa to the Lincoln Lancaster County Board of Health for a term to expire on April 15, 2022.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Thank them for their volunteer service.
All right.
They're both incredibly necessary on the board. They're doing a great job.
All right, with that, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Number 6 is public comment. Those wishing to speak on items relating to county business, non-agenda may do so at this time.
Is there anyone from the public who wants to make comment at this time? All right, seeing none, please proceed with the agenda.
Next is number 7, announcements. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold a staff meeting on Thursday, April 18, 2019 at 8:30 a.m. in the Bill Luxford Studio of the County City Building. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold its next regular meeting on Tuesday, April 23, 2019 at 9 a.m. in Room 112 of the County City Building. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 23rd, 2019, and Tuesday, April 30th, 2019, at 9 a.m. in room 112 of the County City Building regarding the manager application for Michael McClellan in connection with a Class B liquor license for Branched Oak Marina, 10,001 West Davie Road, Raymond, Nebraska. County Commissioners can be reached at 402-441-7447 or commission@lancaster.ne.gov. The Lancaster County Board of Commissioners meeting is broadcast live on Link TV City. For the rebroadcast schedule, visit lincoln.ne.gov. Meetings are also streamed live on Link TV and can be viewed on YouTube.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Vest.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners is adjourned, and now we will start the meeting of the Lancaster County Board of Equalization for Tuesday, April 16th. Mr. Clerk, please proceed with the agenda.
A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the wall at the rear of the hearing room. Additionally, a copy of all written material to be discussed at today's open meeting is available from County Clerk staff at the front of the hearing room. The material can also be viewed on the county's website at lancaster.ne.gov. Agenda item 1 are minutes. Approve the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019.
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or suggested corrections? Please call the roll.
Shore.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Vest.
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Number 2 are additions and deductions to the tax assessment rolls.
Move approval of the additions and deductions.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Number 3 is an appeal on notice of taxable status for the Board of Regents.
Good morning, Scott Gaines, Deputy County Assessor, Register of Deeds. Just wanted to give you a little bit of background on the next 2 items. Statute requires governmental entities that lease property to others are required to notify the county assessor of those leases every year. We kind of recognize that in the community we weren't receiving leases that we had an idea that were probably out there. So we proactively sent out notices to, or letters to all of the governmental entities saying, hey, here's the responsibility you have to notify us of leases that may be in existence. Pretty successful outcome on that. So the next 2 items were, as a result of these leases being provided to us, the standard for governmental owned property for exemption is to be used for a quote-unquote public purpose. Kind of our standard is once it ventures into a commercial venture in that lease, a for-profit entity, in competition with other similar vendors in the community, that's when we do our job to notify that entity that we intend to tax them. This is an appeal. These next 2 are appeals of our determination that the property should be on the tax rolls. So with that, I'll let them speak their piece.
Okay. Is there someone regarding item 3 that wants to speak? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to appear before you. My name is Stacia Palzer. I am Deputy General Counsel for the University of Nebraska, and I'm here on behalf of the university to provide information in support of the university's request that the property at 1400 R Street remain exempt from taxation. The property in question here is the space within the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Student Union that is licensed to food vendors. First of all, I'd like to correct a mistake that was made within the protest letter and also to clarify that these agreements under which these vendors are located in the union are licenses. They are not leases. The property is licensed at fair market value. Licensees were selected and terms were determined through a competitive bid process, and the operation of the space remains a public purpose. As licensees, the food vendors do not have exclusive rights to possess, use, or enjoy the property, and therefore do not meet the definition of a lease contained within Title 350. This is an important distinction, and I appreciate the opportunity to clarify. I'm happy to provide copies of the licenses if the board would like. The property is owned by the university, a public corporate entity of the state, and therefore the property is tax exempt to the extent used for a public purpose. The statutory definition of public purpose includes the general operation of public education. as well as carrying out the duties and responsibilities of the state as conferred by law, with or without consideration. The powers granted to the Board of Regents of the University of Nebraska pursuant to state statute are not only those directly related to the board's function of higher education, but those necessary in carrying out this function to provide the greatest possible benefit to the people of the state. In addition, the definition of public education found within Title 350 also contemplates not only the teaching, instructional, and research activities, but also includes public service activities. UNL, like other public universities, has a long-standing tradition of providing a student union for the public purpose of providing a meeting and eating place for its students, staff, and faculty. UNL owned and operated its own cafeteria in the student union for many years. However, through the evolution of the more traditional student dining experience, and in an effort to satisfy student requests for brand name vendors, the cafeteria-style food was replaced with fast food restaurant concessions. Even though these are brand name vendors, their operations are restricted. They are required to center around UNL's academic schedule and the operating hours of the student union. They are also subject to the university's pouring rights agreement. The general public, typically visitors to the university, can eat at these establishments, but such use is incidental to the primary public purpose. In considering whether a use is for a public purpose, we can also look to the determination of the Internal Revenue Service. Monies the university receives are evaluated by the Internal Revenue Service. If the income received is not related to the university's educational purpose, the university is then required to pay unrelated business income tax on this income. The IRS has determined that the amounts received from food vendor licensees within the student union are related to the university's public purpose and are therefore not taxable as unrelated income, business income. This board has previously reviewed and evaluated the tax-exempt status of the food vendor licensees in the student union and has determined they were tax-exempt. No material changes to the university's formed student union license agreement have been made since the previous evaluation. Therefore, the university respectfully requests that the board affirm its previous tax-exempt determination for the student union property. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Palzer?
Yes, I do have one. Do you know when that previous review took place? Are you aware of the date
I
of that?
believe it was 2001.
Okay. That ballpark's
11?
close enough.
Sorry.
2001, the ballpark's close enough here. Thank you.
Other questions? Can you touch again on the difference you see between license and lease and what the importance of that is?
Sure. In this case, the food vendors do share some common areas. They are all responsible for maintaining the dining area. They don't have an exclusive exclusive property right in that area. Therefore, they've been designated as licenses and then do not fall within the lease determination under the statute.
So if one organization wanted to come over and get a few French fries from another, it's a common area? Is that, you're not implying that? I mean, they have specifically defined areas of operation.
They do with their back operations, but with respect to the operation of the dining facility where the students are would eat, faculty, staff, all that is non-exclusive license, so they all have the ability to maintain to use that space.
Okay. It's like any other food court, right? I mean, shared dining area, different vendors.
That's what I was assuming. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak on this item? Okay.
Could we have someone address the license versus lease issue?
I guess from my perspective, the request for lease information was the trigger that supplied this information to us. Whether it's a lease or a license, I don't think is the driving factor. It's the actual use of that space as a commercial food vendor open to the public. That's the distinction in my eyes.
So from your perspective, Scott, you don't...
Whether it's a lease or a license...
It doesn't make any difference?
To me, I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Just in the reporting requirements, and again, that was how we were made aware of the situation.
Can you speak to the difference if this was already determined as tax exempt and now you're recommending a different determination? What
I
difference
couldn't speak to
between
something that occurred, and
decision?
I couldn't speak to that.
Okay.
The circumstances, I was not around.
Okay. Commissioner Flowerday?
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't see the difference between, I agree with the county assessor's office here. I don't see the difference between, you know, what service Steak and Shake is doing there in the student union as opposed to Wendy's 50 yards down the road. I'm glad they're both there. I'm glad they're both, you know, available, but it just seems like this is a basic issue of fairness and taxation to me, so.
Is that a motion?
I guess it is a motion. I would make a motion to disapprove the appeal.
I will second.
The incredibly awkwardly phrased motion.
I will second that we follow the recommendation of the county assessor and deny the appeal.
Any other discussion? I would just say, based on the information we have, I do think that there is a difference when you are limited certain conditions within the lease. If you're a restaurant operating on your own property and you can determine your hours and you can advertise and you can make those independent decisions as a business, I think there are limitations within that public space. I don't necessarily know that I understand the level at which those restrictions become a public purpose versus not being a public purpose, but I do recognize that I think that's a valid argument to be made. With that, any other discussion? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vest.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Brinkman.
No.
Motion carries 3 yes, 1 no. Number 4 is appeal on notice of taxable status for the state of Nebraska.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Greg Hood. I'm the leasing manager for the State Building Division for Department of Administrative Services.
And I'm Dale Shekowski, the interim general counsel for Department of Administrative Services.
So, we are here on appeal of a similar situation to what the university had. We have a coffee kiosk located on the first floor of the state office building. It is approximately 250 square feet in a 485,000 square foot building. This is, to us, it wasn't disclosed as a lease when it was requested. We have several private leases that we did. Originally, this service was bid as a service contract. If it's a lease of building space, it goes through building division. If it's a professional service or a commodity, it goes through state purchasing. This kiosk was put in place. It's primarily for the benefit of our employees and the public coming in to do business in the building. It's a counter. There's no seating area. There's coffee. There's sandwiches that can be grabbed, refreshments, and our staff can get back to work. The vendor is limited to the business hours of the building. It's only open during the day, Monday through Friday. There's no weekend hours. Further, they're restricted. There's no outside advertising on the building. So, yes, the public can come in and make purchases there, but it's not neon sign out on the road that says, "Hey, come in. There's coffee available here." It's the intention for it was for our staff that have a 30-minute lunch break. For in between hearings, we have public meeting rooms similar to this. The State Board of Education meets there. Other bodies, that there's some place you can go grab something and come back to it. So.
And what I would add is what Mr. Hood talked about is how we acquire services. The State Material Department is responsible for acquiring services and also for commodities. It's the State Building Division. Oops, are we out of time?
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. And so this was, like as Mr. Hood said, it was not originally disclosed because what the building department has done is recognize certain space for vending or certain space for these sorts of services. The State Materiel Division, like the university, did the request for proposals. This is competitively priced with all the limitations as to the hours, no outward advertising or anything else like that. And the foot traffic in and out of the building, there is some general public foot traffic that comes in and out because it is a public building offering services of the government there. However, the bulk of the traffic in and out of the building is the state employees, and this is a place, as Mr. Hood said, for them to get their services. This is competitively bid out, and also in state services such as this, the Nebraska Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired also has preferences, and we were in the process right now of putting this service out for bid again, and the Nebraska Commission of Blind and Visually Impaired has also been offered, or will be notified when that goes out again, as they have a preference for this because it is considered a service that they provide. And so it's always been traditionally treated as a service for the employees and for the public rather than a traditional lease, similar to what the university was doing.
Okay. Any questions for these gentlemen? Thanks for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Anyone else that wanted to speak on this item? Okay, I'd entertain a motion. Yes, Commissioner?
I'd like to have
Yes.
Scott approach. In your opinion, do you see any significant differences between this issue and the one we just?
I think they're very, very similar. I would point out that if you go look for a scooters in Lincoln, Nebraska, on their website, it's going to advertise there's a location, there's your nearest scooter. So, it is open to the public, and it is, not limited to just those employees in the building. And I believe there's still food service in the building and another location in the basement of that building. That's the only difference that I would note.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
Based upon the recommendation of the county assessor, I move we deny this appeal.
I would second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Brinkman.
No.
Motion carries 3 yes, 1 no. Next is number 5, notice of assessed valuation change for property taxation purposes for Vladimir's Real Estate Services, Inc.
This was error brought to our attention where we had a clerk error where basically the building improvements were doubled up on this property, shown twice inadvertently. So this is our recommendation to correct that to the assessment that should have been in place from the beginning.
Okay.
I would move approval.
I would second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next is number 6, public hearings. The first public hearing is a notice of proposed change in exemption status, and this is with Arc Housing Development Corporation of Lincoln and Centerpoint, Inc.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on item 6A.
Do you solemnly swear from the testimony to give the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. These are two properties that had previously been granted exemption. They've now sold to private entities, so this is to remove that exemption upon that sale and notify them that the property will be back on the tax roll.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on item 6A? All right, with that, I'm going to close the public hearing related to those items and ask the clerk to call the correlating item.
This will be number 7, and this is action on the notices of proposed change in exemption status.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, the next item is item 6B. We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing on that item.
This is review of the 2019 451 tax exemption application for Lincoln Monthly Meeting Society.
This is a property that had previously been granted a 100% exemption. The entity notified us that there was a change in use and that a portion of the property is now being used as a residence for a caretaker of the establishment. So we're recommending the exemption on the building portion of this lot go from 100% to 40% to represent the area, except for the part where it's used as a residence currently. And I believe we had this situation previously, and they went from using it as a residence to using it for their religious purpose, now back to using it as a residence. So our recommendation is to tax that portion used as a residence.
Just for clarification, we're taxing the 40% or exempting the 40%?
I may have misspoke. The exemption would be 40%.
Exemption.
The building would be 40% exempt. That's correct.
Okay. Others who wanted to speak? I think the clerk wants to swear you into the public hearing. Just
sure. Do you solemnly swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I affirm, yes. My name is Tom Hinshaw. I am the resident caretaker for the Lincoln Friends monthly meeting of the Society of Friends and a director for the corporation. Here to answer any questions on the caretakers. This is a tenancy for a caretaker of the church property. They have no minister or priest as a part of their faith, and so they need someone to look after the property during the week when there are not church services or meetings going on. Is it 40% that's being taxed, or?
The exemption would be 40%.
The caretaker's residence is 539 square feet, the second floor of the house. So it does share some of the kitchen services on the first floor. So the house has 2 floors and a basement, and the property is a very large outside lawn area. So I'm not quite sure about the percentages.
And we're only talking about the building itself. We're not modifying. The land would remain exempt. It's just the portion used as a residence. So that what you described, and I'm not familiar with how the appraisal staff came up with the percentage, but that would be logical that a portion of the first floor used as kitchen and then the second floor used as a residence. That would make sense that about 60% of that building would be taxable, 40% exempt.
And then otherwise, I'm just here to answer any questions you may have about the caretaker tenancy.
And we can certainly review that percentage, and if anything needs to be modified on that, we can certainly address that.
Commissioner Vest.
Well, Tom, are you asking us to make a change here to what Scott has told us? Are you proposing a different alternative than what Scott has asked for?
I don't know what the resulting taxation will be. The meeting or the church is hoping to have something roughly akin to what they had when they had a caretaker a few years back. And I think there will be no objection if the amount of money is around what they can afford.
Okay.
So I'm mostly here just to answer questions and make sure that any questions are answered and that we understand what's going on.
Okay. Great.
Yep, and that's this is to put it exactly the way it was when it was previously used as a residence. So.
Oh, okay. Any other questions for testifiers?
I have one for Scott, a general question. When some churches own, it's called a parsonage in my vernacular, where the pastor lives there, are those houses subject to property tax, or are they exempt?
Under certain conditions, they can be granted exemption. There's some, in regulation, it's they're required to live there as a term of their employment. Right. Geez, off the top of my head, there's... I'm trying to think of what it has to be still used primarily for religious purposes, but generally parsonages, as we would know them, have traditionally been exempted in Lancaster County when again there are certain conditions that spelled out. In other words, we call a pastor, you have to live in this house.
Right.
But typically, I would say yes, those areas are granted. Caretakers become a little different situation.
That's what I was
wondering. And caretakers, traditionally, we have taxed the area where a caretaker would live, that's more of a residence, and there isn't the ongoing religious use like a traditional parsonage where there's church activities going on and some of those other activities.
Yes, go ahead.
I could also address that. The church has not wanted to classify, although I've told them that they could and they should look at this as a necessary employee. They have not wanted to go through the taxation and regulations for employees, so they prefer to classify it as a tenant, and that is why we haven't sought the exemption that would make it totally. However, if the amount that we're talking about in taxation were to greatly exceed the amount of employment taxation, I think they would come back and try to do that.
So you're aware of this option, you've looked at it and decided this is the way you want to proceed.
That was, in fact, I have worked with another Quaker church in California where we got that exemption because the property taxes were so high. But this church is daunted by the thought of, because it's a very small church, daunted by the thought of the employment regulations and taxes, and they've done this before. So as long as the amount involved is not going to break them, they want to go that way.
To their credit, the church has been very forthcoming with information like this. You know, they wouldn't have had to bring this to our attention, but they've been very upfront and had very good communication over the years. So we appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you for being here. Is there anybody else who wants to testify on this item? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on item 6B and ask the clerk to call the correlating item.
This will be number 8. Action on the 2019 451 exemption application for Lincoln Monthly Meeting Society.
I would move that we approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Vest.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Flowerday.
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing on item 6C.
This is 2019 451 tax exemption applications, and this includes Dimensions, Educational Research Foundation, Dialysis Center of Lincoln, Inc., First Presbyterian Church of Lincoln, Nebraska, League of Human Dignity, Inc., Midwest Dharma Wheel Contemplative and Healing Arts, Inc., Nebraska Communities Playhouse, Autism Center Nebraska, Inc., United Methodist Church of Martell, Madonna Rehabilitation Hospital, Bryan Medical Center, Christ Lutheran Church, Hope Spoke, Hickman Presbyterian Church, Mosaic, VSL Lincoln Sumner LLC, Lincoln Memorial Cemetery, East Lincoln Christian Church, and Nebraska Wesleyan University.
I think the best way to handle this group is we'll present our recommendations. Our recommendation is going to be for approval of all the applications with 2 exceptions. The first exception, we're recommending denial of the Lincoln Memorial Cemetery property. Very basically, this property is used for profit, and so it cannot qualify as if it's used by a for-profit, and they're a for-profit entity. So that's our recommendation on denial. The other one that we're asking for a delay is the Midwest Dharma Wheel property. The organization just submitted information, some follow-up information that we had requested after consulting with County Attorney's Office for some additional information. That was just provided to us yesterday. We've not had a time to thoroughly review it like we'd like to. It's a somewhat unique religious situation for Lancaster County, so we want to spend the time it deserves to review that one and probably schedule an on-site review and work with County Attorney and the taxpayer to go through that one. So we're recommending to hold that, and we'll come back to you with a recommendation at a later date. With the exception of those 2, we're recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I guess I'll point out 2. VSL Lincoln Sumner LLC is the old Milder Manor that has been acquired by a not-for-profit. Worked with County Attorney's Office, had some additional questions answered there. We're comfortable with an exemption on that property. And the other one, Madonna Rehab Hospital, the proactive property, is going from an 18% exemption to we're recommending a 100% exemption. We were contacted by the organization, and they made compelling arguments that the property has evolved over the 12 years it's been open, and that it's basically the predominant use is as a rehab hospital, and there is incidental use for private purposes. And I know there's representatives here if you did have any questions from them. But our recommendation, again, is approval on everything except for the Dharma Wheel property will delay and the denial on Lincoln Memorial.
One that drew my attention, the Dialysis Center of Lincoln meets all the criteria, Scott. Yes. I mean, I'm assuming that because you didn't draw attention to it. But.
Medical facilities in general have a very broad scope of a charitable purpose in the statute regs and particularly case law.
Any other questions for Scott? Yes.
And just for clarification, everyone else on the list is 100% exemption.
That is correct. Connie, correct me if I'm wrong. That is correct. And there are a couple of them where the exemption percentage has gone from a partial to a full. Right. They may have had a tenant in there previously that was taxed, and that tenant's gone now. They've gone to full use of the property.
All right, yes, Ms.
I was just going
Holloway.
to suggest, even though we've suggested delaying the Midwest Dharma, if any of them are here, they can still feel free to talk at the public hearing.
Certainly, we'd love for them to kind of state their case and describe to you if they are in attendance. This would be a good time for them to lay out how the property is being used.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning.
Hi there.
The clerk will want to swear you in. Okay.
Do you solemnly swear from the testimony about to give us the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm Susan Napolitano. I'm with Berry Law Firm, and I represent Midwest Dharma Wheel. We submitted I want to say, 52-page PDF of pictures of the property and a description of every area of the property and how it's being used yesterday. So I apologize for the tardiness on that. We thought that somebody else had submitted it already. If you have any questions for me about the nature of Midwest Dharma Wheel or how they are using the property, I'm not sure how much you know at this point, but I would love to be able to explain that to you. Midwest Dharma Wheel is a Buddhist organization. It's a religious organization. Buddhism may or may not be familiar to you. It is very inclusive of other religions, so you might even see a picture of Jesus on the wall with other spiritual teachers. Carrie Toomey has been my client for, I want to say, 12 or 13 years. And I met her when she came into my office. She was just back from New York as a dance teacher, and she wanted to open Haymarket Pilates and Yoga Studio. And as I discussed this with her, I remember I was a very new attorney, and I remember saying, you know, Carrie, what you're doing here is much more than yoga and Pilates. What you're doing here has a very spiritual element in Buddhism. Have you thought about maybe taking that a step further? And she said, I don't want to present myself as something I'm not, and I don't want to hold myself out to the public and scare people away. I want this to be palatable to people in the Midwest. So when they come for yoga, they're going to get quite an experience in yoga, but it's also going to be the traditional ancient yoga. Fast forward a dozen years later, and Carrie and I were looking at new properties, and she came upon 1900 D Street, which was traditionally used as a Catholic church. She had no intention of changing any kind of status until we really looked at what she was doing and how her practice had evolved. And she was now having people pay as they could afford. All classes are open to the public. The yoga, and you'll see when you look at the PDFs, the yoga is a meditation. Everything that happens on this property, as everything that happens with a Buddhist practitioner, is practice. In Buddhism, you don't just go to church one day, not that that's a bad thing, it's a wonderful thing to go at all, but in Buddhism, your practice is every second of your life, every choice that you make. You speak the truth, you are practicing to be the best human being that you can be. Some of the struggles I think that people have in linking how yoga or Ayurvedic medicine or other things that Carrie does on the property, how those link to yoga. People struggle to understand that this vehicle, this body that we're in, is very much the receptacle for our spiritual growth, and that is a Buddhist tenet. If you are not if you are not open physically, if you're not in good health physically, it's more complicated for you to really receive the messages that Carrie is teaching in her Sunday Dharma practice, which is a Sunday sermon. And that, again, is open to the public. So the health aspect, with her history in dance and her bachelor's degree in dance, that has really led her on this journey where she is now a certified teacher in Buddhism and certified to minister to others in Buddhism.
Okay, any questions for Susan? Do you have any objection to the delay that's being requested by the assessor's office so that they can review the documents you sent in yesterday?
I have no objection to that, no.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Vest?
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, well, I was going to ask if there was anyone else here who wanted to testify on any of these applications. Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and then I'll ask the clerk to call a correlating item.
This would be number 9, action on 2019 451 tax exemption applications.
I would make a motion that we approve this list with 2 exceptions. One is denial for the Lincoln Memorial Cemetery, and one is a delay for further review for the Midwest Dharma Wheel Contemplative and Healing Arts.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, our final public hearing is on item 6D. I will open that public hearing. Is there anyone that wants to testify on these items?
Okay, this is for motor vehicle tax exemption applications for Connection Point Church of the Nazarene, Lincoln Medical Education Partnership, Catholic Bishop of Lincoln, Bryan Medical Center, Nebraska Wesleyan, and First Lutheran Church.
Anyone who wants to testify?
Clearing room.
All right, if you're getting up and you're not heading this way, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, but wave your hand if I did that too soon. Okay, let's go ahead and call the correlating item, Mr. Clerk.
This will be number 10, action on motor vehicle tax exemption applications.
I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Vest,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next is number 11, public comment. Those wishing to speak on items relating to County Board of Equalization business not on the agenda may do so at this time.
I move we adjourn.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Vest,
Yes.
Shore,
Yes.
Flowerday,
Yes.
Brinkman.
Yes,
Motion carries 4-0.
we are adjourned.